I confronted my wife with the wrong charger, and she didn't deny the phone. She just sat down like it was over. Hi, I'm Caleb, 41, and 2 months ago I found out my wife had a second phone I didn't know existed. It started with a charger, a plain white, slightly scuffed USB-C charger in the bottom drawer of the bathroom vanity, the drawer we never used. I had been searching for a nail clipper, something stupid, and when I found that charger, something about it didn't sit right. My wife, Marissa, used an iPhone, always had, lightning cable, not USB-C. I double-checked. My son, Alex, had a tablet that used micro USB. My daughter used an iPad. So whose charger was this? I picked it up, stared at it, and felt that weird pit in my stomach I get when I know something isn't right, but can't explain why yet. We'd been married 14 years. Comfortable. Boring, even. We split chores. We went to every soccer game, every school play. We'd survived a kitchen remodel without killing each other, which in marriage years is basically a badge of honor. But this charger, it didn't fit, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I did something I'm not proud of. The next morning, when Marissa was in the shower, I opened the drawer again, took the charger, and started hunting. Bedroom. Nothing in the nightstands. Closet. I found a tote bag I hadn't seen in years, shoved behind her row of heels. Inside was a book, an old receipt, a bottle of hand lotion, and a phone. Black Android, cheap model, no case, no charm keychain like her usual phone. It was powered off. I stared at it for a long time. It was too late to pretend I hadn't seen it. I pressed the power button. It booted up with a basic welcome screen. No lock screen, no fingerprint, just a pattern lock. I put it back exactly as I found it. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, we sat on the couch watching a Netflix documentary. I stared at her side profile the entire time and thought, who are you talking to when I'm not looking? She laughed at something on the screen and looked at me. You okay? I smiled and said, yeah, but I wasn't, because that wasn't just a second phone, it was a second life. I didn't touch the phone again for 3 days, but every minute it lived in my head. I'd look across the kitchen island while she was cooking and think, she's texting someone on it after I fall asleep. I'd hear her laugh while folding laundry and wonder, did she laugh like that with him too? But I didn't know anything, not really. It could have been old, could have been for some dumb reason, but my gut wouldn't let it go. On Friday, she took the kids to her sister's place for the night. I claimed I had a patient with an emergency crown, perk of owning a dental clinic. She kissed my cheek, told me not to work too late, and left with a duffel bag and a smile that looked exactly like it always did. The second she pulled out of the driveway, I went straight to the closet. The phone was still there, still locked. I sat down at my desk, stared at the screen. I was already crossing lines. What was one more? I Googled how to bypass an Android pattern lock. Turned out there was a trick. If the phone was running an older OS, I could boot it into safe mode and reset it. I followed the steps, hands shaking like I was defusing a bomb, and it worked. The phone opened. It was mostly clean. That was the first weird thing. No apps except messages, contacts, a calculator, and a weather widget. No Gmail, no Chrome history, no photos. Just texts. Hundreds of them. The contact name was just C. No picture, no last name, just a letter. The messages went back 8 months. Can't wait to see you again. Same hotel? I hate how much I miss you when I'm home. If he ever finds out, he won't. I scrolled and scrolled, feeling like I was watching a car crash in slow motion. Every message chipped away at something I thought was solid. Then I saw one from 2 weeks ago. He kissed me on the forehead last night. I almost started crying from guilt. I didn't even realize I'd stood up until I heard the chair fall backward. The house was dead quiet, but my ears were ringing. I wanted to scream, break something, call her, drive to her sister's and drag her outside and ask what the hell this was. Instead, I put the phone down, sat on the edge of the bed, and said out loud, okay, so now I know. Only I didn't. Not yet. Because there was one more message. One from C, sent just 3 days ago. Are you going to tell him or should I? I read that message 5 times. Are you going to tell him or should I? It was the first one from C in the thread that had any bite to it. Everything else had been flirty, affectionate, even pathetic at times.
But this one had an edge, a threat, and Marissa hadn't replied, at least not on this phone. I set the phone down like it was radioactive. My stomach felt hollow, like I'd skipped a meal and gotten punched at the same time. Was this guy getting impatient, trying to blow things up? Or worse, had he already told someone? I thought about the Christmas party at my office last week. Marissa had smiled through the whole thing, held my arm, laughed at jokes. Had she already decided? Had she already picked a side and was just buying time? I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. The next morning, I made pancakes for the kids, poured orange juice, smiled like my face wasn't splitting in half. Marissa came home around noon, kissed my cheek again, smelled like her sister's perfume and coffee. I stood there in the kitchen and watched her unpack grocery bags. "Did you have fun?" I asked, voice even. She nodded. "Yeah, the kids passed out early. I actually got to read a whole chapter of a book." Normal. Perfectly normal. But all I could see was that phone, that message. Are you going to tell him? I waited until she went upstairs for a shower. Then I did something that probably wasn't smart. I texted C back. Just one sentence. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You don't know?" My hands were sweating. I replied again. "If you have something to say, say it." Typing bubble. Then, "Let's talk, in person." I stared at it. Then the follow-up came. "Corner booth, Denman's Cafe, 11 a.m. tomorrow." I didn't respond. Didn't have to. Whoever this was, they knew I'd show. I told Marissa I had to run errands in the morning. She smiled and said, "Don't forget the paper towels this time." Like nothing was coming. Like our life was balancing on a thread. The next day, I walked into Denman's 5 minutes early, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. There was a guy already sitting in the booth. Mid-30s, lean, short beard, worn leather jacket. He looked up and said, "Caleb?" I nodded, slowly. He didn't smile. "I'm Chris," he said. Then he added, "I've been seeing your wife for 8 months." I didn't sit right away. I just stood there, gripping the edge of the booth like I needed it to hold me upright. Chris looked calm. Not smug, not apologetic, just calm in a way that made me hate him instantly. He motioned to the seat across from him. "You want coffee, or—" "Are you serious?" I asked. My voice cracked. He exhaled through his nose like he expected this reaction, like he'd rehearsed it. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I just thought you deserved the truth." I sat down, not because I was ready, but because my legs didn't trust me anymore. He nodded once, like that was progress. "I didn't know she was married when we met," he said, eyes steady. "We ran into each other at a conference in Cincinnati. She said she was separated, living with her kid, but things were complicated." I stared at him. "You didn't check?" "I did. Eventually, a few months in. By then, I already—" He didn't finish, just shook his head. I confronted her. She cried, told me she was stuck, afraid to hurt anyone. She said she still loved you. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't tell me what she said to make herself feel better about cheating." He nodded. "Fair." I looked down at the table. There were 2 mugs, both still steaming. He'd ordered one for me, like we were going to have a polite, civilized betrayal chat. "Why now?" I asked.
"Why contact me?" Chris didn't flinch. "Because I told her it had to end, or change. She keeps saying she's going to tell you, but she won't, so I did." He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. "I know this feels awful, but I want you to see I'm not making this up." I looked. Messages. Photos. The same ones from the burner phone. Some I hadn't seen. One was a picture of them in a hotel room mirror. Marissa was half in frame, grinning, wine glass in hand. I shoved the phone back. My skin felt too tight. Chris didn't push. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Truly, I didn't come here to destroy your life. I just—" "You already did," I said. And for the first time, he looked shaken. "I didn't know about your son. She doesn't talk about him much." That hit harder than it should have. "She doesn't talk about Alex?" Chris shook his head. "I only found out his name when I saw a picture on her home screen." I sat back. numb. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "You said you ended it." Chris's eyes didn't move. "Because I did love her, and part of loving someone is not helping them lie to everyone else." I didn't respond. I couldn't. When I finally stood, my hands were trembling. I left him there, coffee untouched. I drove around for an hour, no destination, just turns and stop signs and blinking until the world stopped spinning. When I finally pulled into the driveway, Marissa was on the porch, phone in her hand, not the burner, her regular one. She looked up and smiled. "You forgot the paper towels again." I didn't smile back. Instead, I said, "We need to talk." Marissa blinked. Not the slow, confused kind, the fast kind, the kind you do when you're trying to erase something from your face before it shows up in your eyes. "Okay," she said cautiously. "Can it wait until after dinner? The kids?" "No." That one word stopped her like a wall. She stood straighter. "What's this about?" I didn't answer, just stepped past her and into the house. She followed. I could feel the panic heating up behind her composure. In the kitchen, I reached into the junk drawer and pulled out the charger, held it up. This was in the bathroom. Wrong charger for any of us. She didn't move. So I went looking. Still nothing. I found the phone. Her lips parted just barely. She didn't deny it, didn't gasp, just paused. And then, just like that, she sat down at the kitchen table like her legs couldn't fake it anymore. I set the charger down next to her, like a piece of evidence in a quiet courtroom. "How long?" I asked. Marissa stared at the wall over my shoulder. 8 months, she said, barely above a whisper. "Since Cincinnati." I sat back, numb. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "You said you ended it." Marissa's eyes didn't move. "Because I did love her, and part of loving someone is not helping them lie to everyone else." I didn't respond. I couldn't. When I finally stood, my hands were trembling. I left him there, coffee untouched. I drove around for an hour, no destination, just turns and stop signs and blinking until the world stopped spinning. When I finally pulled into the driveway, Marissa was on the porch, phone in her hand, not the burner, her regular one. She looked up and smiled. "You forgot the paper towels again." I didn't smile back. Instead, I said, "We need to talk." Marissa blinked. Not the slow, confused kind, the fast kind, the kind you do when you're trying to erase something from your face before it shows up in your eyes. "Okay," she said cautiously. "Can it wait until after dinner? The kids?" "No." That one word stopped her like a wall. She stood straighter. "What's this about?" I didn't answer, just stepped past her and into the house. She followed. I could feel the panic heating up behind her composure. In the kitchen, I reached into the junk drawer and pulled out the charger, held it up. This was in the bathroom. Wrong charger for any of us. She didn't move. So I went looking. Still nothing. I found the phone. Her lips parted just barely. She didn't deny it, didn't gasp, just paused. And then, just like that, she sat down at the kitchen table like her legs couldn't fake it anymore. I set the charger down next to her, like a piece of evidence in a quiet courtroom. "How long?" I asked. Marissa stared at the wall over my shoulder. 8 months, she said, barely above a whisper. "Since Cincinnati." I sat back, numb. Was he serious? She shook her head. "No, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be." "Did you love him?" Silence. My throat tightened. "Did you love him?" "I don't know. I loved what he gave me. I loved feeling like someone saw me again." I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. "I was right here. I've been right here." She wiped her eye fast, like she was ashamed of the tears. "You've been busy, Caleb. You've been running the clinic, coaching soccer, doing bedtime routines like a checklist. I felt like a coworker, a roommate." "That justifies this?" I asked. "No, it doesn't. Nothing does." The house was quiet. Alex and Lily were upstairs, probably watching cartoons, not knowing their whole family was cracking underneath them. I looked at her. "He told me he asked you to end it, that you said you would." She nodded slowly. "I wanted to. I tried, but it felt like once I stopped being that version of myself, the fun one, the one who wasn't covered in responsibility, I'd disappear again." I stood up. "So what now?" She looked at me, really looked at me for what felt like a year. "I don't know. Do you want me to leave?" I didn't answer right away.
Instead, I asked, "Does Alex know he's allowed to talk about his day with you? Because apparently you never mentioned him." That landed. Her face crumbled. "I didn't keep you out," I said. "You walked out. You just waited to take your coat off until now." She folded into herself. "I'm so sorry." I believed she was sorry, but I didn't know if that mattered. I walked to the stairs. "We'll talk again after the kids are asleep." Then I added, You should decide what kind of apology this is going to be. One you mean, or one you just hope gets you forgiven. And I left her sitting there, next to the charger, in the kitchen we built together. That night, after the kids fell asleep, Alex clutching his stuffed sloth, Lily curled like a comma in her unicorn sheets, I stood outside their bedroom for a few minutes, just breathing, just listening to the sound of a normal life I was no longer sure was real. Marissa was waiting in the living room, same spot as always, the beige corner of our sectional, her knees pulled up, feet bare, hair down like it was supposed to make things feel softer. It didn't. I sat across from her, no table between us this time, no charger, no props. "Talk," I said. She started with the same thing they all start with. "I never meant to hurt you." I held up a hand. "Skip the trailer, go straight to the movie." She took a breath. "I don't think I ever planned to cheat. It started with conversation, someone listening to me, asking me questions, telling me I was interesting. I didn't feel that way anymore, Caleb. I felt like a background character in my own life." I stared at her. "So you made a new one?" She nodded. "I made a world where I still had options, where I could be the one someone waited for, not just the one making dentist appointments and packing school lunches." "And sleeping with someone else was part of that fantasy?" I asked. She flinched, not because I was wrong, because I wasn't. "I'm not excusing it," she said. "I'm just trying to explain how I got so far from myself. I didn't even recognize what I was doing until I was already doing it." I folded my arms. "You recognize it now?" She nodded. "Why didn't you stop?" "Because stopping would have meant facing what I'd done, what I broke." I looked at her for a long time. "Do you love him?" I asked again. "No," she said. "I loved that he didn't need anything from me. You and the kids, you're real. You have real needs. You require effort. He was just easy." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "So where do we go from here?" "I want to fix this," she said. "If you'll let me." I let out a bitter laugh. "It's not a faucet, Marissa. You don't get to turn the marriage back on just because the water's cold on the other side." Tears slid down her face, silent. "You've got two jobs now. First, you need to explain to me why I'd ever trust you again, and second, you need to explain it to our kids in a way that doesn't break them." Her eyes went wide. "You want me to tell them?" "I'm not saying you confess every detail. I'm saying you don't lie anymore. Alex is already smarter than we give him credit for, and Lily notices everything. You think they haven't felt the cracks?" She looked like she might throw up. I didn't care. "Do you want to separate?" she asked finally. "I want you out of the house for a week, because I need space to think, and I need it without hearing you cry in the shower or pretend you're okay making toast." She nodded. "Where do I go?" "Your sister," I said. "Tell her whatever you want. I'm not playing PR manager." I stood. She stayed seated. "Start therapy. Individual, weekly. If you want a shot at this, I need proof you're not just sorry, you're trying." I started walking toward the stairs, then stopped. "You're not the only one who disappeared in this marriage. I just didn't do it in someone else's bed." She winced. I turned off the light on my way up. The next morning, she packed a bag.
Kissed Lily, hugged Alex, told them she was visiting Aunt Nicole for a few days. Alex looked up at me after the door closed. "Is Mommy in trouble?" he asked. I knelt beside him. "No," I said, "but Mommy made a big mistake, and we're figuring out what happens next." He nodded like that made perfect sense. "Are we still a family?" I pulled him into a hug so tight he squirmed. "Always," I said. "Always." The house felt different without her. Not better, not worse, just quieter. For the first 2 days, I kept busy. I deep cleaned the garage, reorganized the pantry, fixed the leaky faucet in the kids' bathroom that had been dripping for a year. I needed to move. Stillness made room for thoughts, and thoughts dragged me back to that damn charger, that mirror photo, that message. "Are you going to tell him, or should I?" I didn't respond to Marissa's texts. She sent updates like we were still a team. Started therapy today. It was hard. Told my sister the truth. She didn't scream. Progress? I miss the kids. Tell them I love them. I read every one, replied to none. Alex didn't ask many questions. He was the kind of kid who carried the world silently. I made sure to look him in the eye every time he spoke, to answer everything like it mattered. Lily was harder. She cried the second day, missing Marissa's bedtime song. I sang instead, badly. She laughed halfway through and said, "You sound like a sick robot." I said, "That's Daddy's greatest strength." She made me sing it again. On the fourth day, my sister Michelle came by. She brought lasagna and sat with me on the back porch while the kids played with chalk on the patio. "You look like you've been dragged behind a truck," she said. "Thanks," I muttered. She took a sip of her wine. "I'm proud of you, by the way." "For what?" "For not setting the house on fire." I huffed a laugh. Michelle had known about the affair for 3 days. I told her because I needed someone outside the blast radius. She didn't flinch. She listened. Didn't say "I told you so," though I could feel it waiting in the wings. "You thinking about divorce?" she asked. I didn't answer. "You don't owe her forgiveness," she said. "Not for this. But you also don't have to make the decision right now. You get to breathe first." I looked out at the kids. Alex was drawing a rocket ship. Lily had chalk dust on her nose and didn't care. "I just want them okay," I said. Michelle nodded. "Then lead with that. You're their compass right now. If you spin, they spin." That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat in the living room and finally texted Marissa. "You can come home Sunday night, not before." She replied, "Thank you. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I'll be there." Sunday came. She walked in just after the kids had gone to bed. I didn't hug her, didn't look at her too long, just nodded toward the couch. She sat. "Did you mean it? The therapy? The truth? All of it?" "Yes." "You're not just trying to keep the life." She shook her head. "I'm trying to deserve it." I believed her, still didn't trust her. So I pulled out a piece of paper. It was a list of boundaries, of expectations, of non-negotiables. She read it slowly. "You already wrote this?" "I've been thinking clearly for the first time in years." She nodded. "Okay." And when she said it, I realized something. This wasn't forgiveness. This was probation. We didn't fix things quickly. Real stories don't fold up that neat. Marissa moved back in, but into the guest room. That was part of the deal. No pretending we were whole just because we shared a roof. We had dinner as a family, but we didn't hold hands. We co-parented, but we didn't kiss goodnight. And every Sunday, she went to therapy. She asked if I'd come with her eventually. I told her maybe. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just needed her to do the work alone first, to prove she could stand without me holding her up. Alex stopped asking why things were different. Instead, he started drawing pictures again.
One morning, I found one on the fridge. 4 stick figures, 1 dog, 1 big sun. But this time, the stick figures were spaced out, Mom and Dad on separate sides, a little dotted line between them, and in the middle, a heart, not whole, cracked, but still there. That was my son, drawing what no one else said out loud. Not broken, not healed, just real. By spring, we had a rhythm. Not back to normal, past normal, into something else. Marissa started cooking on Wednesdays again. Her lasagna was still terrible. I ate every bite. We talked more. No performance, no scripts. One night we sat on the back porch. No wine, no kids, just silence. "I don't expect you to ever forget," she said. "I won't," I said. "But I hope one day you believe me when I say I'm still choosing you." I looked at her for a long time. "I'm not sure I'll ever trust you like before," I said. She nodded. "Then I'll earn whatever trust you can give." I didn't reach for her hand. I didn't need to, because the truth was, I didn't need to rebuild everything. I just needed Alex and Lily safe. I needed my boundaries. I needed honesty. And peace, finally, wasn't something I had to pay for. It was something I built, with scars, with clarity, with the steady truth of never again, not like that.